when you're so steeped in it, the outcomes are almost too obvious. So some of the work that I do with my clients is to help them put in regular English the value of the outcome of managing your AP and your AR, of monthly write-up and bank rec. Like, what are those things? Who cares? Why should I even want to buy that? Right? And if you can't convey that effectively, it makes your sales conversations much more difficult.
You're listening to The Successful Bookkeeper with your host, Michael Palmer. Listen each week as inspiring guests share their secrets of success to help you increase your confidence, work smarter, and build a business you love. This episode of The Successful Bookkeeper is brought to you by PureBookkeeping.com, the proven system to grow your bookkeeping business.
Welcome back to the Successful Bookkeeper Podcast. I'm your host, Michael Palmer, and today's show is going to be a fantastic one. Our guest is the founder of She Thinks Big Coaching, where she helps CPAs get out of the accounting rut. Geraldine Carter, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm delighted to be here.
It's great to have you and looking forward to it. I mean, we were chatting just a little bit before the show started, and I think there's a lot of great things we can talk about to help CPAs and bookkeepers get out of the accounting rut, or get out of any rut for that matter. But before we do all of that, Geraldine, please tell us about yourself leading up to this point.
Sure. So what got me to this point is that I started a business with a friend many years ago. I fell into the CFO role because I have an engineering degree. And then when I exited that company, started coaching casually on the side, colleagues of mine who wanted some help understanding their financials. And I really enjoyed helping them explain what was going on with their P&L and their balance sheet. And then it occurred to me, like, why don't you guys know this stuff? Where's your accountant? And then a CPA reached out and asked if I could help them with their business. And that began me working with CPAs and accountants and bookkeepers to help them become better business owners, because all of us as business owners have a lot to learn in addition to becoming experts at our craft.
I absolutely agree. I'm always curious about the obstacles that you faced in growing, starting, that whole period of going from one thing to the next to do what you're doing. What were some of the challenges that you faced as a small business owner getting your business going?
Yeah, so it's, every business owner who's listening right now knows that there's so much more than meets the eye to getting your business off the ground. And I think the one that stumps a lot of us is effective marketing and getting the word out. And the first year, you always have a good story, you're on fire, and you tell everybody what you're doing. They're excited to hear that you're doing something new. But then the second year is like, okay, your story's tired now. And you hit this lull of where am I going to find clients, and how am I going to get them to come to me? And coming from an engineering background where, there were certain majors, if you will, in college that weren't taken as seriously as others, and I didn't know anything about marketing. So for me, getting the word out about what I was doing in my business was my single biggest challenge. And I made a lot of painful and a lot of expensive mistakes along the way. And I've learned a lot of great lessons about how to get the word out about your business, especially when you're a solo flyer, especially in an age of COVID, when a lot of us are either at home, stuck at home, or, aren't going to conferences and getting the word out in the way that we typically would have just a few years ago.
So interesting, and likely something that makes you very effective at what you do with accountants and bookkeepers is because you have empathy for where they're at and growing their business. I mean, that's it. I mean, coming from an engineering background, and obviously sales and marketing is not going to be your main strength, because why would it be, right?
Yes.
And so what you learned through that process is valuable to others.
Yeah. And there's a particular challenge for any of us in our business when we're really good at it. It's hard to see the value. And what a lot of bookkeepers and accountants and CPAs do is technical stuff that most people are coming to you for because they have no idea how to do it. And they don't know what it is. They don't know what it does. And they don't know necessarily if they should want it, right? So you think of monthly write-up and bank reconciliation and AR and AP. And a regular business owner does not, they get so lost in this jargon so quickly. And it's not really what they're buying anyways at the end of the day. But when you're a bookkeeper, this is what you know how to do, and it's what you end up selling. But the focus becomes on selling the deliverable of those services rather than the outcomes of those services. And when you're so steeped in it, the outcomes are almost too obvious. So some of the work that I do with my clients is to help them put in regular English the value of the outcome of managing your AP and your AR, of monthly write-up and bank rec. Like, what are those things? Who cares? Why should I even want to buy that? Right? And if you can't convey that effectively, it makes your sales conversations much more difficult.
I have some exciting news for you. The Successful Bookkeeper podcast now has a free global virtual event called the Successful Bookkeeper Summit. That's right, it's a 2-day online conference featuring 20 incredible speakers from the bookkeeping, accounting, and business worlds, some of which include best-selling author of Profit First, Mike Michalowicz, and pricing expert Mark Wickersham, to name just a few. At the summit, you'll receive tips on how to price your bookkeeping services, market your business, hire great staff, and so much more. It all begins on December 2nd, 2021. To secure your free spot, visit thesuccessfulbookkeeper.com/summit. Again, that's thesuccessfulbookkeeper.com/summit. Don't miss this chance to rise up and change your bookkeeping business in 2022. Register today, and I'll see you at the summit. Now, let's get back to our interview. Wow, what a great exercise. I mean, just that alone, by almost giving some extra thought to, you do this, but why is that valuable? And what's the outcome that it produces for your customer? I mean, a great exercise. So simply writing down the things that our listener does as a service. And then on the other side is like, why is that valuable? Why should they care about that? I mean, if someone did that every day for 1 week, I mean, it's like going to the moon.
Yes, it is. It's really such a great activity because it does get you out of your own head about the technicalities of what you're doing. And it's because you're good at your job, you enjoy technical stuff and details, it's really easy to get in there and to not lose sight, but to maybe underappreciate the value that actually provides. And I was just doing this yesterday with a client who was talking to me about a portion of the tax code, and this happened to be a CPA. And I was asking her, why do a fixed asset assessment or something like that? And she launches into, this and that depreciation and how soon you take it and section 179 of the tax code. And I was like, no. Like, I don't care about section 179 of the tax code. Why do I need a fixed asset allocation? She's like, well, it can save you money. And I was like, oh, you mean you can save me money? How much money? Like $10,000 probably? Okay, great. Right? So now we have a concrete answer of, something that's super simple that your buyers will want to buy. I can save you money with, any number of tax saving strategies that I have. Or in the case of your bookkeeping listeners, I can save you money by plugging expense leaks with an expense review. Or I can save you money by plugging expense leaks by reviewing all of your subscription charges that you're getting every month. Or I can increase your profits by helping you figure out your prices and getting paid in advance. Compared to I'll review your AR and see how much you have in aged accounts receivable. Like, who cares? Nobody wants that. But if you can fix my cash flow problems so I have cash in the bank to pay my mortgage on time every month, now you have my attention.
I was just listening to a keynote speech by Seth Godin, who's a marketing guru, and what he talks about, if people were like, well, how do I become a marketer? Like, because we're talking a little bit about marketing when we're trying to position what we do to other people. And essentially it comes down to this one point, which you're talking about, which is empathy, having empathy for the person you're trying to market to, because we know what we do, but if we don't understand what our customers, what their world is like and what they're going through, we can't market to them because we don't have empathy for them. So just going through this exercise connects us, I think, with that empathy of what are they truly like. They don't care about those things that you mentioned. What do they care about? It's like, well, they're stressed about making the month. Do they have enough money in the bank to pay the staff? Do they have enough money to invest in the business? Do they have enough, whatever the case may be? So if you speak that language, that's going to resonate with them more so than these other bits that you've been mentioning.
Yeah, it's exactly that. It's having empathy for their experience, because once you can put yourself in their shoes to understand what outcomes they want, what problems they want solved, then all of a sudden you go, okay, now I know how to talk to them about their problems and about their desired solutions. And the actual service of delivering bookkeeping is now just the process for getting those outcomes and those solutions. I certainly don't want to say that bookkeeping is ancillary, because it's not, it's foundational. But where bookkeeping fits in the conversation with a prospect, the bookkeeping piece of it is ancillary to the outcomes that you're providing. It's built, obviously, great outcomes are built on a great set of books that you can pull great information from. But you need to get into the shoes of your clients to be able to understand how you're going to solve or contribute to solving their problems. That'll make your sales conversation so much easier. And it makes your marketing so much stickier, because you'll get your clients' attention, your prospects' attention, much more rapidly when you speak directly to their pain points than offering up a list of deliverables that is really easy to look right past.
So true. And I'm thinking our listener right now is at a weekend barbecue, and someone says, "What do you do?" "Oh, I do bookkeeping." Okay. Or say what we just talked about, your outcomes that you created. I help, entrepreneurs sleep better at night when they've got an understanding of their cash flow, or I help them make more money, or whatever it is that you figure out that you really do. That's a better thing to talk about with people at a backyard barbecue. Could be a front yard barbecue too, but at any place when you're getting the word out about what you do. And I think that's one of the traps that every business owner falls into, is they talk about the technical thing that they do versus the outcomes those technical things do. And I think that's a bit of the curse of knowledge. Our listener really knows what they do, and they can easily talk about it. So spend a little bit of time understanding the other side of the fence, which is, well, what's that doingness that you're doing there? How's that helping others, your customer, and bring that out in the conversation. Now, speaking of traps, you talk a lot about the trap, getting into a rut. And I was reading a little bit about a little of your work, and you feel that accountants and bookkeepers can get trapped by their own thinking. How and why does this happen, and how does it hurt them?
Yeah, so there are a couple ways that it's easy to get trapped by your own thinking. And that is, like you say, like you were alluding to, is focusing on the technical stuff. And there's a lot of detail going on when you're keeping a good set of books and doing things the right way. And sometimes when we're well trained and we're well educated, it's easy to believe, or it's easy to keep our eyes out for the complex and complicated problems. But what can happen sometimes is that there are problems that are simple to solve and sometimes quite easy to solve. But because we are trained to look for complicated things, to solve complicated problems, it's easy to walk right past simple but valuable solutions. And one of the things that I find when working with my clients, both CPAs and accountants, is that, and I have worked with bookkeepers in the past, but as my business has changed, I work more with CPAs and accountants, but the problems are the same, that business owners are leaking cash, right? They are spending, they're, they are, they can sometimes be bad managers of their money. And yet they own businesses that have the potential to be highly profitable. So what's going on that they are leaving potential profit on the table? And oftentimes, once you look under the hood, the bookkeeper will see, oh, look, they've got a bunch of expense leaks that we could potentially plug. Oh, look, they are perhaps not paying themselves the right amount when they're an S Corp, whatever they've elected. This is not reasonable compensation. That could potentially be costing them money or putting them at undue risk. It looks like maybe they haven't taken full advantage or maximized PPP and ERC. Maybe I should have a conversation with their CPA to make sure that those programs are being optimized. And in Canada, you may have different programs for COVID related, but in the US, those are the two main programs from a tax standpoint. So there are numerous, countless ways that when you look under the hood, you could see potential profit for that business that is not being captured. And what I see happening is that, and oftentimes this is because of hourly billing that creates a sort of treadmill of being too busy, is that the accountant or the bookkeeper will say, yeah, but I mean, I know my client could be doing better, but I'm too busy. Yeah, I know my client could be doing better, but I can't get them to do anything about these things. I've told them before, but they keep not fixing the problem. I told them to cancel their, 3 extra subscriptions to all these, online services that they're not using, but they haven't done it. Yeah, but, and all these yeah buts. I told them they could, there's opportunity here, but they haven't, and so on. And so that money just keeps getting left on the table. And these can be really simple solutions, like developing a process by which you're both accountable for action items that are going to get done between now and the next time we meet, for example. That's something that I do with my clients at the end of every meeting. They've got a list. I know what's on the list. They know what's on it. And we agree to it, and it's up to them to get it done. And if they know that at the start of the next meeting, we're going to start with, did you do your things on the list? And that's how we drive results, right? So that's just one way. But there are countless ways that you could set your business up to help your clients be more profitable and stop walking past all this cash. Like another just quick example is if your clients bill in arrears, help them with their billing system to get paid up front. Right? So now you are really going a long way. Instead of managing cash flow, you shift into how can I solve my clients or improve my clients' cash flow position by actively thinking about how are we going to improve this and working with your client to make sure that they implement what's on their side, and not working with clients who aren't going to make any change, because those ones you're just not going to be able to create the same amount of value for. So that's what I mean by getting trapped by your own thinking, is thinking that things always have to be the way they've always been and not taking advantage of the obvious because you believe it needs to be complicated or complex.
It's beautiful. I love this, always love this conversation because there's just so much opportunity in it when our listener stops and realizes that they are looking at the world a certain way. And it's not bad or wrong. That's just the way that it is. It's the way we are as human beings. We get into routines, we figure things out, and then we no longer need to figure them out anymore. But it's also a weakness because we don't see what's possible anymore. And if we don't wake ourselves up from that, we're not being as I think, effective and maybe as successful as we could be in our businesses. So I love this, like looking at the business and coming to them and say, hey, number one, do they want to grow? Do they want to improve their business? Because if they don't, why have them as a client? They might be a good client and all that good stuff, but if you're looking for great clients that want to pay you a lot of money to do the work that you're going to do for them, those are going to be people who they're up to something. They want something. We want an outcome. It's a valuable outcome. Well, you get to share in that value if you help them get there. So just love that thought. And this piece around thinking outside of the box is the next step. Like when you have a conversation, I think, with someone like your client who is, they really want to grow, that sets the table for having a conversation. Well, how can we help you do that?
Yeah. And what's the growth that you're looking for? And helping your client also stretch into what they don't know to ask about, or perhaps even don't believe is possible because they haven't seen examples of other people like them for whom it's been possible. But when you have a client roster that has, let's call it 100 clients in it, you can see into the progress that they've made over time, and you have a sense for what is possible, and you can stretch your client into beyond what they even see for themselves. Because a lot of times, we don't even know the things that we don't know. So a client might not know that they can bill up front. A client might not know how to shift let's just take the example of a landscaping company. They might bill in arrear for a lawn that they've mowed 30 days ago, and now they're billing, and they're busy, so they don't bill until 60 days later, and then they don't get paid for another 30 days after that. They're getting paid 90 days after they mowed the lawn. They might have an idea that they could potentially get paid up front, but it is so far removed from their day-to-day of, sharpening lawnmower blades and refilling the gas tanks and the oil with the right mix, that they're not thinking about how do I shift not just to getting paid up front, but putting my customers on subscription with a regular recurring charge to their credit card with a fixed amount for all 5 months of the summer so that it's just on repeat and automate. And now I'm getting paid upfront for all my lawn mowing services, and I don't even have to think about billing because it's all been done upfront. But you as the bookkeeper, if you've helped a landscaping company, let's just say, make this transition, you know what's possible. And when you can provide that enormous value to your clients, that's beyond what they conceive of, you provide enormous value. And when you provide enormous value, because fees follow value, you can raise your fees. And when you can raise your fees, you don't have to work so hard to compensate for undercharging and underpricing. So this is just, one of the many paths out of the sort of overworked, underpaid bookkeeping situation that so many folks find themselves in.
So many. And great conversation. Could have this conversation every day and it would still be valuable, is how to help your clients, how to be valuable to your clients by driving value. And I think I'm always curious, everybody's different. People are raised differently, and some people have strengths, and, but I think as a bookkeeper, and probably yourself can relate to, an engineering background, like there's a certain training, there's a certain behavior, personal strengths that would go well with accounting and bookkeeping and engineering that there'd be other things that wouldn't. And one of those things might be challenging the status quo, doing something totally different and outside the box. I mean, if you're an engineer, you're like, hey, why don't we try and build this building without a strong foundation? Hey, that might discover something new, but not likely going to be something you're going to start your day with. And I think that's the challenge with anybody that's work is very highly technical, highly specific. It's like you're not looking for gray, you're looking for black and white. And that's a routine and a mindset that can often put people into just a solid concrete form. And it's not, you don't, it's either zero or it's not. There's no, like, that's it. Whereas what we're talking about is you're going into a situation that's completely fluid and we have no idea. And so we have to sort of penetrate that and go, what's going on here? What are the opportunities? And make suggestions to people to do something totally different than what they're used to. I mean, that's sort of out of the day-to-day, but that's where the value is. That's where the consulting is. That's where the advisory work is. is in taking the experiences that you have, like the landscaping story you told, taking that experience and sharing it with your clients and challenging them to think differently about how they could run their business. I mean, it might not go well, but it's more likely to go well, or there's a journey to go, it's like persisting through failure to get to the opportunity, because just because one landscaper does it doesn't mean it will work for another landscaper, but there's this big opportunity to find out if we can. But that's risk. So I'm sure that's the kind of work that you're doing to help these accountants and bookkeepers step through this mental thinking to actually go in and be effective at being able to lead change.
Yeah. So you bring up something that's really important, which is that I think because of the nature of the profession, it attracts people who are linear thinkers, who appreciate that 2 + 2 is always 4. It's never 5. There's no gray. And that's a really valuable skill set for bookkeeping, right? And we need people who think like that to be in these roles. Because we don't want an artist in the books, right? Who's like, whatever, 2 + 2 is 5 today, it's fine. We need people
leave that
who
up to they can leave that up to their clients.
Right. So
the clients do enough of that.
Their clients do enough of that, exactly, right? Of just like, it's no big deal. No, it is a big deal. You need to get the details right. But when it comes to driving value for your own business, right, you have to get out of, when you're doing the bookkeeping, you need to think like a bookkeeper. But when you're running your business, you need to get out of the sort of linear thinking and the kind of inside the box thinking that we all love when we're linear thinkers, and get into the level of thinking that is, what do my clients value? And now so we need to create that box and then think inside that box. What do my clients value, and where can I create value? Where can I find opportunity? And like you say, profits come from risk. So I need to take a little bit of a risk here and do something that's slightly different, because if I can find the thing that's slightly different, that's valuable, then that sets in motion what I mentioned earlier. More value drives higher fees, which solves a bunch of other problems down the line. Where I find it easy to, there's a lot to get your head around here if you have clients who are in a bunch of industries. And I know that you've talked about niching on your podcast. And niching, it fits right in here. Niching makes your life so much easier when you can understand a specific industry or a specific profession and study them so that you can see where people in that profession or industry are making mistakes on repeat. And it's the same kind of mistakes over and over and over again. They're no big deal to fix. It's just that we're human, we're business owners, we have a lot going on. And then you can also see the problems that crop up in their business that they don't even know that they have. So, for example, in my industry, I focus on CPAs and accountants. Hourly billing is endemic in this profession. And many people still don't realize how big of a toxin it is. And it is it's like radioactive waste. I've got to go in with my booties on and my Geiger counter because it's all over everything. And it is bad for your clients. It is tragic for your clients to bill hourly, and it is worse for your business to bill hourly. But most CPAs don't realize this because it's what everybody in the industry does. Not everybody. It's what many in the industry do. So it looks normal. So they don't know necessarily that it's a problem, but I do. And I know how to fix it. And it's enormously valuable to them. And we get great results when we fix it. So the bookkeeper, your listeners, can think about a similar parallel. What's the corollary here? When you focus on an industry, you can get really deep inside, not only understand the obvious problems, but understand what's even more valuable is when you can understand the problems that your clients don't even know that they have and have a solution for them. And once you do that, then you can mine that vein all day long.
So exciting. And, I think there's two major concepts there. The whole concept of niching and niching, as others will say in parts of the world, but then as well, this whole concept of your expertise in driving driving change and thinking like a business owner, stepping away from being a bookkeeper to, hey, I'm running a bookkeeping business. I have to think differently about that. Those are two big shifts. And I don't think people wake up one day and be, just have that happen. It takes a process. Something has to trigger that, has to make that happen. How does that work with your clients? Like we're talking about big shifts here. How do they start making these shifts? How do they even decide that this is something they want to do?
Yeah. Well, so the decision that this is something they want to do typically comes from the positive power of being fed up, right? I've had it. I've been working 80 hours a week for a year and a half and I'm done. I need to change something, right? And at that point, they're open to anything. So that's, it's easiest to work with people when they're ready for change. And once they're ready, then I agree, the shift in thinking does take some time. It's like you say, it's not overnight. It's not a flip that switches just like that. So, but what we do is get started heading in the direction of niching, right? So by way of example, I'll tell it through a story of one of my VIP clients who's been through this process and out the other side. She wasn't sure. She was doing taxes and accounting for all kinds of businesses, but she lives in South Texas and knows farming inside and out. She's grown up in a farming community. So she niched into farming, and once we got into it, saw all the potential value she could create for her clients if she just had the time. So we built out her services designed to provide the solutions and the outcomes she knew she could provide. Once she started offering them, she started working with her farming clients in that way. It became clear to her, and she became much more confident that this was a much better service model, if you will, for her clients, because her clients got much better results. But it took her doing it and seeing the results and taking, 4 to 6 months for her to move her own farming clients, for her to see it and go, oh, right, okay, this is better. And once she had the evidence, she had to create the evidence in order to believe it. So that's one way of going through it, is creating the evidence first so that you can believe it. But you don't have to go through gathering evidence in order to believe it. You can simply decide to believe it if you want to. We believe in all kinds of things that we don't have evidence for, right? We know what love feels like. Many of us believe in God. We don't necessarily have direct evidence, but we believe these things nonetheless. So you can, if you want to shortcut the evidence gathering process, simply acknowledge that there is so much more value that you can bring to your clients and get into that headspace. And then your sort of unconscious mind doing what it does, when you've never thought about a red Subaru before, but all of a sudden you're going to buy one and then you see them everywhere. It's the same thing. You tell your brain to go looking for value that it can provide, and it will find you value that you can provide to your clients. And you just start jotting down all the ways that you can do that. And then you build your service around that. Instead, you build your service around the value that you can provide instead of building it around the deliverables.
It's remarkable, really, when you think about it. And when just hearing you say this, it's really simple. Why do people have such a tough time being successful?
Well, there are a lot of reasons for that. I mean, we can get at the technical. Cash flow is always a problem. But I think, what I've have come to see across my clients is that the biggest driver of success is their own mindset. And those who are absolutely believe through and through that they will be successful, they deserve to be successful, those are the ones who are on fire. And the ones who think that success is bad and scary and it's going to bring all this extra work and I don't want to be in the spotlight and all these other sneaky reasons will plant obstacles and potholes on their path to success. Your mindset is a far bigger lever to pull on in generating your own success than any amount of tactical or technical information that anybody can provide.
Well said. And, the sad thing is that even the belief that, someone sitting there listening to this might think, well, yeah, I think I see things okay. Like that, it's like the same thing. It's like this repeating trap that one that's in that position if has no idea what they're thinking because they're just so used to thinking it that they can't break away from that. And even the concept of thinking differently or working on your mindset that might make a difference for them. Well, it might not happen for me. I mean, that's a belief. It all comes down to that belief. And, it's always wonderful to have someone like yourself on the show to talk about these concepts, because this, I believe, really is the pivot point, the opportunity to build anything someone wants to build by working with someone who can see differently, who has seen differently, and has helped others move from one place to another in a rapid way that is remarkable. And so I think I love having coaches like yourself on the call, because there's so much opportunity in that mindset, and it is really simple stuff, except it's not often available to someone on their own.
Yeah, I mean, you can't see the water that you're swimming in sometimes. It takes somebody outside to show it to you. And, to your point, one of my clients even quantified this to me, although albeit unintentionally. And after about a year of working together, she said to me, if I had believed in myself the way that I believe in myself now, I would be 3 times farther along. And
So true.
that's just astounding to me that she quantified it for herself in her own way. I didn't do anything to solicit that. She just sort of dropped it. And I was like, that is fascinating. So we actually did an entire podcast episode on that unto itself. And for listeners, if they want to have a listen, my podcast is Smart Strategy for CPAs, because I think this is so important for linear thinkers like us to appreciate the power of belief and understanding how you feel and how that informs not only the actions that you take, but the actions that you avoid taking. And because CPAs and bookkeepers love to say that they're risk averse, but if you're afraid of risk, boy, you're going to avoid taking important actions that are going to drive profitability in your business. So we need to become aware of how we're feeling, even though it sounds California woo-woo, because oftentimes we're avoiding the feelings that we expect will lead us to feeling uncomfortable, unnerved, nervous, sweaty. And if we expect that we're going to feel that way, we're going to avoid taking the action that's going to lead us to feeling that way. But we need to travel through that space in order to create the results we desire.
Well said. It's always interesting, the woohoo thing. And I mean, it's amazing how that still exists in a conversation with people. And, we live in such an information-rich time of society. I mean, you can just find information on just about anything. And, if you asked any champion in any industry or sport or any area of life, what is the secret to success? It's going to come down to mindset.
Yeah.
Every time.
Yep.
Every time. The gold medalers right now in the Olympics, it's all mindset. You'd say every single one of them, it's all mindset. And so, that if there was one thing we could get across in this particular episode is don't undervalue mindset. It's one of the most important things to pay attention to in life, period. Geraldine, you've mentioned your podcast, great title, probably relevant, much of it relevant to our listener. But you also have some resources available for our listeners. We talked a little bit about the show. Please share about the resources that you've prepared for our listener.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you. And because pricing is there's so much theory out there about pricing, and I wanted bookkeepers, accountants, and CPAs to have a distilled version. I created a 1-page PDF on the 4 most common pricing strategies and tools that you can use in your business. I distilled it right down to the basics, the pros and the cons of each. And if your listeners want to download it, they can find it at my website. It's shethinksbigcoaching.com/successful.
Beautiful. And sounds like a fantastic document that our listener would love to have a look at and be very valuable. And Geraldine, this has been absolutely a gift to us. And so on behalf of our listeners, thank you for coming on the show and sharing your knowledge with them.
Thank you, Michael. It's been a pleasure to be with you today.
Thank you. And with that, we wrap another episode of the Successful Bookkeeper podcast. To learn more about today's wonderful guest and to get access to all sorts of valuable free business building resources, you can go to thesuccessfulbookkeeper.com. Until next time, goodbye.
You've been listening to The Successful Bookkeeper with Michael Palmer. For more information and to download the resources mentioned in this episode, please visit us at thesuccessfulbookkeeper.com. Thank you for listening.